Welcome to the BBC's Pebble Studios and the Great Egg Race. Each week, we shall be asking teams of three to perform positive miracles of ingenuity in science and technology using only ordinary household equipment. The teams for the first program are three lecturers from Huddersfield Polytechnic Computer Department, that is a yellow team, two training consultants and a service engineer from Computer Technology Limited in Hemel Hempstead, that's a green team, and lastly the red team from Wrexham District Computer Club, composed of two firemen and an advertising agency studio manager. For those of you who've never seen the Great Egg Race before, you may wonder what kind of materials the teams have available to them. We provide them with three absolutely identical kits, and these are the sort of things which we give them. There are rolling pins and food whisks, tins, hose pipes and corkscrews. But normally most of these fade in importance compared with wood. Everything can be put to some use. Blue nylon rope could, for instance, add strength to a bridge. First man about to be course at 1 minute and 30 seconds. I must say he's a courageous man to be taking the precious specimens.
We've only got 30 seconds to save the world. Go, Mike.
Well done. Or maybe it could be the control system of a very squeaky automatic card dealer.
No, it's not how we planned it.
No, keep going, Dad. Keep going.
There are other uses for a paint roller rather than just painting. A less patriotic instrument shows one use for nails. Here's another use for the nail, as a line of sight for a rangefinder. Of course, some teams use nails to hold bits of wood together. A last stick comes in many sizes and can be used to launch a glider. Anytime you like. Or to power a shuttlecock server. There are film cans and finger bobs, angle brackets, and a host of bits and pieces which all go together to make the egg race. This is really an exercise in self-indulgence. When I was a child, one of my dearest wishes was to have a tail, just like him. Because I thought that it would be an organ of emotional self-expression, and maybe I could use it as a third hand. Well, today, my dearest wish will be granted, because the problem for the teams is to make a tail. It will have to be attached realistically to one member of the team. It shall be able to express joy, dejection, and excitement realistically. And extra marks can be earned if it can be operated without using the hands as unobtrusively as possible. And there will be the possibility of a bonus if the tail is truly prehensile, like my friend here, and could maybe be used in eating a banana. Well, the teams have 3.5 hours to achieve this task. I suggest they get grafting.
It's got to be Jackson.
It's not.
You're going to wear it.
It's got to be the youngest member of the team. It's got to be the youngest member of the team.
Well, the angle poise lamps.
We haven't got
That sort of idea from a solid base. You've got straps there, rubber straps to strap something. Haversack idea onto your back. We've got to talk very loudly. So you've got straps to make a frame, and you've got to get this angle poise lamp business going. Because the angle poise can come up, design, it can go over at top.
Yeah, and provide
Yeah, right. Well, we've got two alternatives. We either make sort of a thing with long arms with a few joints, or a thing with lots of small joints.
I think you need to get it.
And lots of small joints would look a lot better, wouldn't they?
Right, yeah. The thing we've got to do is design the mechanism there which allows us to control this.
Well, all you want is little hooks and eyes on the top there and string going through.
You can get it to go straight tight simply by pulling the end
Pull both. If you pull both
But hold on,
strings,
hold on.
it goes
Now,
rigid. If you
over
pull
there-
one string, it goes up. With one string, it goes down.
Yeah, but there, we've got a bike inner tube, haven't we? If we
Yeah.
cut that...
Hey, don't forget, don't keep everything simple. Because we've got to keep this fairly simple. It's got to be fairly robust. The more joints you've got, the more weaknesses you've got in the whole thing.
Isn't it? You know, like cat. If we think cat, cat maybe is very expressive, isn't it?
And wag side to side.
Or you could do the old
Oh,
wag.
come on. It's not designed like that.
No, you think just it'll have to be straight, side to side. You won't be able to do a
that's
wave.
very difficult to achieve.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, agree.
If you have,
We want to be able to move it left, right, up and down, and possibly bend the end.
And then the end.
Yeah.
Now, what about the use of all this? The thing is that there's a peacock arrangement down there, which if you could open it up, it expresses pleasure.
The question was a prehensile tail.
But that expresses emotion.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is
But
true.
the
Yes,
monkeys
it is
don't have
expressive
peacock
emotion.
tails.
No, what?
But I think
But peacocks do. The peacocks are more expressive than monkeys, aren't
That's
they?
right, yeah.
Whilst the teams are contemplating their potential tails, I'd like to introduce today's guest judge, Professor Ian Fells of Newcastle University.
Hello.
Ian, I like to think of the tail as being made of tendons and muscle and bone. To what extent do the materials we've given them measure up to these demands?
Well, our traditional bits of bone, I suppose, would be these bobbins. This one's plastic, this one's wood. We could connect it together with an appropriate disc, the kind of thing that slips, of course. I think that might be rather tricky to do. I mean, for instant length of tail, we have tubing of this kind. It's pretty tail-like. Though it's
Difficult to control, though.
well, I think it is. I mean, this sort of bizarre, thick piece of tubing, I'm not quite sure. Something more flexible here. This is a bicycle inner tube. I'm not sure whether there's any animal with an inflatable tail, but perhaps there ought to be. Maybe we'll finish up with one like this at the end of the day. Things to control it: string, elastic, and, of course, things to embellish it, which I think will be necessary to hide what might be rather a curious construction. So we may finish up with something really rather impressive and peacock-like.
Well, I've got a sort of ready-made tail here, and I suppose I could stretch it. It's a very waggable tail indeed.
Yes, yeah. 2 marks for trying, I should have thought, out of 25.
Well, before trying to solve their problem, let's have a look at the sort of things they are actually doing.
Yes. Yeah, we might have a rather... Yeah, I think we might have a hefty one. You know.
I think you must be building an elephant's trunk.
It must seem like that with the size of it. Yes.
Impressive diameter.
Yeah.
You've gone for a solution where you have thin vertebrae and large discs.
Yes, well, we were expecting to get a bit more leverage with the larger, the greater length across here.
Because your control lines are going to go
That's
along
right, the control lines are going to go down.
Come and show me on your drawing.
Right, yes, right. Yes, you can see here the individual vertebrae that we saw on the bench, and we've got a total of 10 of those, and the crosses are getting smaller and smaller towards the
So
end.
you have a taper tail.
A taper tail, yes, that's right. Now we're hoping that the weight is going to be taken by a tensioner that goes right down the middle. It's not shown on the diagram.
Center line, yes?
Yes, that's right, and that's in fishing line, so it should be okay.
And these external lines are...
That's right. Now they'll come out of a base plate, which will in fact be attached to the back by means of a braces arrangement.
A belt and braces.
That's right.
So the tail would stick out like that?
Out of there, yes, from the lower back. We did consider having a tail from another part of the body, but it did say realism, so we thought we better not.
I think the realism is very important. Now, what's going to happen to the control lines you've got here? What are you going to attach them to?
Well, the two that allow sideways movement are going to come and be attached to elbows.
Yeah.
So there's one going to go to one elbow and one going to go to the other.
Yeah.
And the lines that
the up and down ones.
The up and down, control the up and down movement will pass over the shoulder through some neoprene tube onto my thumbs. So I'll move the up and down, hopefully, by my thumbs. So I should have a rather jaunty appearance when I'm operating this thing.
Shimmy.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it'll all be done by shimmy. I think that's the best way of putting it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
As I say, if we take, I'll leave them to dry.
Leave them to dry.
Let's get up to you for a moment.
Yes.
It looks like you've gone for a vertebral solution. Is that the full length of your tail or just the tip?
That is now the length of the tail.
Now, it looks to me as if it's potentially rather floppy because there
Yes.
obviously isn't very much stiffness in it. How do you intend to curl it nicely and artistically?
You need a bias to one side using the elastic.
So that would be
Naturally
a natural curl.
Naturally curled.
And how will you then straighten it out and maybe make it curl the other way?
Using two separate control lines, we can sweep it to one side.
The control lines are threaded through these those eyes, and there are two sets of eyes right angles to one another.
That's right.
So you can either curl it in this plane, or hopefully you can curl it in the other plane.
Yes.
Or use this natural curl.
To take it back the way.
Well, I think that's ambitious.
Yes.
How are you going to fix it onto yourself?
Still in the design stage.
Because there's going to be a fair amount of leverage of the weight of the tail, isn't there?
There is indeed, yes.
Fairly large back plate.
Well, the back plate bearing on where you have most surface.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll leave you to consider that little detail. Thank you.
Thank you. If I leave you...
All right, well.
We can start covering this afterwards, be all right.
Yeah, we can...
As long as the control wires don't start getting all tied up in the covering.
Well, yellow team, we seem to have a tail just beginning to take shape, if only short. Now, what principle are you operating on?
Well, we have a rubber piece and tube in the centre
Yeah.
to make it flexible, then an extra stiffness added, but some flexibility by a tube on the outside.
So that's a
it's like
joint between
That's a
vertebrae.
universal joint between vertebrae. And then on the outside, controlled by three, probably two wires, and two rubbers to tighten it. So we only need two cables to control it.
So it'll wag all right?
It'll wag all right, yes, providing we pull two together and it goes straight.
That's fishing line, actually.
That's
isn't it?
nylon
Yes,
fishing line.
yes,
And then pull on that one, it wags one way, that one it wags the other, let go and it goes back.
And how long is it going to be?
It's going to be about a metre in length
Oh, I see.
with a combination of joints. Yeah.
And we have a technique for grabbing bananas, do we? If we're really going to go ahead and
Yeah.
look to... Let's have a look at that.
Look at this, yeah. Our original idea actually was to try and simulate a monkey's tail and have a coiled end, as it were, on the end of the prehensile, of the end of the tail proper, with an extra control wire fixed on spacers that went around the outside of the curve.
Tricky.
Yes. And then when we wanted to open the coil, we could pull on the wire to open the coil, position the open coil around
Around
an
the
object,
yes, yes.
let go, and hopefully it would coil back around the object.
But that's nature's way of doing things.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
So if we've got time at the end, we might try that. But we're having difficulty at the moment selecting a suitable elastic element for this.
Yes, yes. So what are you going to do?
The other possibility is a sort of normally closed pair of pliers, like this, with two jaws, with a hinge and a spring to keep them closed. And then, if these are mounted on the end of the tail and to a control line again,
Yeah.
which pulling down the centre of the tail, because it is tubular, would open the jaws.
And then
We
you
could
can
then
grasp.
position it again and let go, and it would grasp.
But this is a metre away, so it's going to be quite tricky to control, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a sort of go for broke, I think.
Ah, I see. Well, I hope it works. Thank you.
Right, have we decided on the length of that then?
No, well, we can,
Is it Richard optimistic?
I think it'll hold together.
Right.
If we try that one out, it's not going to take very long to cut it off again, particularly if we use that method there.
Yeah. Are we going to isolate that in?
Yes, we need to do that right at the end.
When we know we're going. Yeah.
My face is now being explored by the prehensile end of a columnar fibroscope. Its tip is moving and exploring my face here in the up and down direction, on the screen, here in the side-to-side direction. In fact, it behaves just like the tip of a prehensile tail. This is how it works. By moving the thumb wheel here, I'm relaxing the tendons on one side of the tail and tightening on the other one, so bending it towards me and away from me. And if I shift to the other wheel, it tightens tendons which are at right angles to this and loosens the corresponding pair, so I can move it sideways. So I could really explore any space which I like, just like this. One dimension, the other dimension. Now, Ian, you've got the real thing in front of you there, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
Nature's way of doing it.
This chap has, or had, a marvellous prehensile tail, which we see is constructed of vertebrae. which are moved with tendons and muscles and the like. And even cleverer animals, like electric eels, not only do that, but with an electrostrictive effect, they're able to give you an electric shock, which is what we should have asked the teams to do, or perhaps a rattle or something.
You can actually see the notches through which the tendons pass here, can't you?
Yes, and in fact, each team has really built a tail based on this principle, in imitating nature, and perhaps shows that there isn't another way of doing it. But of course, he can manipulate the whole thing in a very useful and interesting way. But then we have another possibility, which, as usual, I like and nobody else has taken up. And that's this pneumatic system. If I blow it, you'll see it can be manipulated by blowing air through it. Now, in fact, it has a long metal spring in it which curls it up if one is not blowing through it, and then it curls up as soon as you release the pressure.
So in a sense, it's rather like a bird and pressure gauge, a rather long one.
Yes, I think it might work quite well, but a little difficult to manipulate sensibly. Only blowing it very hard works. We're looking at the green team now, and they're at the stage of attaching the tail to the bottom of one of their people, and it's really quite tricky because he's got to be able to operate these wires from in front. It looks quite attractive, though, doesn't it?
Yes, I would have thought they would cover, by the time they finished, they would have covered this tail or something. And I think they've been wise in having this large intervertebral distance, as it were, because it makes it relatively easy for the tail to flex.
Oh, I think that was the right thing to do. I mean, whether they can bear to cover it up remains to be seen. Their handiwork will disappear. Whether the straw boater has anything to do with it, again, I'm not quite sure.
I suspect their real difficulty isn't so much the side to side. The wag, I think, is going to be fairly easy. It's the up and down movement. And if I were them, I would have a stay to the top of my head, so that by nodding my head, I could lift the tail up and down.
Really nice. Leave that there like that. Feed it through.
Here we are on the red set, a great hive of activity, and again, a long tail consisting of bobbins with pulling wires on them. They've covered up the rather massive structure on the back of their man with that rather attractive red blanket, and they're just threading in the nylon wires which are going to pull and move the tail. Looks quite impressive, doesn't it, Heinz?
Yes, it somehow or other seems to have a more continuous tail. I'm a bit interested whether they can achieve a tighter curl than the others.
Oh, yes. I think they may have to wag it all right, but actually tying it into anything resembling a knot would seem to be fairly unlikely, wouldn't you think?
I would have thought that tying a tail and tying it without using one's hand would be in the postgraduate stage of this. I like this. We're now on the yellow set. And I must say I'm very impressed by the use of the drain clearing implement as a universal joint.
It looked very attractive indeed. And of course, I'm feeling it's a little longer than the other one we looked at.
Much thinner.
But thinner, yes, certainly. I like the actual joints, you know. They're beginning to approach the sort of joint that one has in reality.
Yeah, yes. In fact, if one had a cross-section of it, one would find that there are two cotton reels which have a piece of wires down the middle, a short piece of rubber tubing, and then a piece of inner tube slipped over them to stop them rotating in relation to one another. You can see it rather well now. You can also see the guides for the single filament nylon control lines.
Of course, they could actually have put fluid in these joints, couldn't they, and really simulate it and have it properly lubricated.
There seems to be discontinuity in the tail at present.
Well, certainly there is. And of course, have they got this grab which they'd talked of? I don't see any signs of that for holding the banana, do you?
I think if I looked right at the end of their tail, there's a green snare.
Oh, indeed, yes. Is there?
No. Last time I looked at it, there was a green snare.
I see. Yes. No, we're still a little early in the final.
There seems to be some very rigid, some digital tail, which can only bend in certain places.
Yes, but I suppose that's the way they've managed to get it reasonably long without too much difficulty.
Crank it, baby. Yes, again, just have a try.
Right, I'd have to peel that.
Peel it back. Leave the peel up, because otherwise it won't catch it. See in a minute.
Well, here's the red team actually capturing their banana, as far as I can see, with what looks like a loop, doesn't it?
Yes, a
Heinz?
snare, yes.
Yes.
In fact, they're using exactly the same technique. They've taken the banana stand with them.
Yes, I have a feeling that this is the first time they've done this.
Yes, it's not a naturally learnt movement.
Nevertheless, it does seem to be working. It's curling around perhaps more than I expected, and perhaps more than they expect.
The teams have about another half an hour before the audience arrive, and they've got to produce results. Whilst outside in the courtyard, Leslie Judd is waiting for her breakfast.
I know it's a bit late for breakfast, but what is time when you're dealing with genius? Anyway, it does give me the chance to show you this egg cup, which we'll be giving to all the teams, and also to show you this one that we'll be giving just to the winning team. Now, in previous years, the problem for the winners has been finding something to fill this cup with. But this year, we think we've cracked it, because we have found an unfertilized wallabird's egg that's been laid and then abandoned in that tree over there. So what we intend to do is to invite some old and experienced teams to construct a gigantic and amazing machine which will shift the egg to its egg cup from its nest up there. Of course, in the most entertaining way they can possibly imagine. Now, the machine will grow a stage each week, so you're going to have to keep watching to see how it develops. And all the first team's got to do is simply get the egg out of its nest. Well, I gather the device that they're using uses a conveyor belt and a lot of water. So I think it's going to have to be the plastic Mac for me next week, because that's when Team 1 will be trying out stage 1 of this incredible egg machine.
Our audience have arrived and is waiting expectantly to see the results of the team's endeavors. The stage is set, and we now see how well they perform as 5-limbed human beings. But Ian, before we see the performance, let's explain the marking system. I think we'll give them 30 for the emotion which they can manage to express into their tail wagging.
Well, then there's another 30 marks, of course, for engineering design. The thing's got to work properly and hopefully elegantly. But we also want it to be elegant and to be beautiful, rather like a peacock's tail, perhaps, and witty too. So another 20 marks for that.
And finally, there will be a bonus of 20 marks for prehensility. That is the ability to do something with the tail which is not just decorative or emotive. Now, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the scintillating peacock of Wrexham will now go through his motions. First, joy and excitement. Next, pride. Next, utter dejection. And now, for his tour de force, he will try to grasp the banana. Notice the gentle approach. Now the moment of truth, the marks. For expression of fidelity, 25 marks.
Then engineering, it came together pretty well. It had a few kinks in it. So for engineering design, we'll give it 22. Now, as for appearance and general charisma, well, I think 13 marks for that.
And for taking the banana, the prehensility, we award another 12, giving them the first-class total of 72. The next team to tickle the sophisticated palate of this discriminating audience are the fairy tales of Huddersfield. Fairy tale, please be excited and joyous. A bit harder, more excited, more joyous. And now be proud. Proud, not tall. And now dejected. Now try and snare your banana. An assistant now comes on the stage, inserts the banana in the snare, of dubious fairness, I would say. Slightly well done. An interesting performance, perhaps a trifle rigid. So for emotional fidelity, I would award him 20.
Well, then for engineering, yes, I agree with the rigidity. Perhaps it had slipped a disc or two. I think we'll give him 18 for that. But it really was rather pretty, I thought. Very attractive. So 15 for its general appearance.
And for prehensility, there was a brave attempt at grasping the banana, but not perhaps entirely successful. So we gave him 6 for that, giving the fairy tale of Huddersfield a total of 59 marks. The next team to be brought to the attention of this anthropoid audience are the scallywags of Hemel Hempstead. Please demonstrate to us your expression of joy and excitement. The sound. A bit more vigorously and a bit more vertically. And now, demonstrate your pride. And now, dejection. We understand that this rather large tail is unsuitable to attempt the banana. So thank you. A brave, but perhaps slightly less distinguished performance with a tendency for the tail to wag the man. For expression, I've awarded him 19.
And now engineering, yes indeed, the tail I thought was in control of the man, so I think 15 for engineering. It was an attractive green, vernal sort of colour, I think perhaps 13 for appearance.
And unfortunately, of course, the banana was not attempted, so a naught for prehensibility, giving us a total of 47. Well, Ian, if our calculations are correct, and I'm sure they are, the winners of this week's egg race are the red, scintillating peacocks of Wrexham. Well, this is almost the end of the show. We'll be back next week with another problem in the egg race. But before we finish, let me thank my guest judge, Ian Fells, and all the teams. There's just time now for the grand finale.
And